Hello, good evening. Before our year ended last year, if I'm not mistaken, ang topic natin is the difference between quantitative research and qualitative research. Now, before we start our new lesson for the new year, gusto ko lang talaga masigurado that you have a mastery of qualitative research and how does that differ from quantitative research. So, I would like you to do this exercise on your own. I-pause nyo lang yung video if you need to. Instruction. Identify if the following questions are qualitative or quantitative. So based on the questions that you will see on the screen, simply decide if that research will involve a quantitative research or a qualitative research. Okay? Please do numbers 1 to 5. Pause the video if you need to. And then numbers 6 to 10. There you go. Again, just pause the video if you need to. So, pwedeng picturean nyo yung parehong slide na yon, and then on your notebook, I would like you to answer numbers 1 to 10 if it is a qualitative research or a quantitative research. Okay? And then after you answer those items from 1 to 10, go directly to this part of the video, correct answers, and then I will reveal to you kung ano yung mga tamang sagot for each of those items. Okay? Pause the video now and do the exercise. Let's talk about the correct answers for the following items. Number 1. Why do parents resort to corporal punishment as a form of discipline? This is obviously a qualitative research. Kasi ang tanong niya dito is why. Remember, kapag ang tanong mo sa research is why, that will involve you to answer the question in a qualitative way. Kapag hindi ka magsusukat, if you are not going to measure anything, most likely it's going to be a qualitative research. And so in number 1, the main question we want to answer is why? Bakit? Ano yung mga reasons? Therefore, the best method here is to interview parents why they use corporal punishments. Number 2, how do parents know which parenting style they should use? This is going to be a qualitative research. Gusto mo kasing malaman dito kung ano ba yung mechanisms, what are the different factors that parents look at for them to decide that they will use a certain parenting style. Ano ba yung mga dapat nilang makita from their child? Or maybe what are the things in their situation that will make them decide to use a certain parenting style? Kailan sila magiging permissive? Kailan sila magiging authoritarian? Kailan sila magiging authoritative? Diba? Again, if you would like to know those reasons, those factors that parents do consider before they choose a parenting style, the best way to do it, mag-i-interview ka talaga ng mga parents. Number 3, what are a bad leader's typical characteristics? Most likely, this is going to be a qualitative research. And how will you do this? Ano ba yung paano mo masasagot yung tanong na yan? What are the different typical characteristics of a bad leader? Well, ang gagawin mo dito, of course, first, you are going to define on your own terms, what do you mean by a bad leader? Diba? You have to be specific in your definition of a bad leader. After you define, hahanap ka ngayon ng mga leaders that fit your description of a bad leader. And then after you select, after you already define what a bad leader is, hahanap ka ngayon ng mga leaders in the past, maybe in history, na papasok doon sa definition mo of a bad leader. And then from there, what do? Maybe you can read their biographies and then select certain things that you can see in their biography which you think contributed kung bakit sila naging bad leader, or ano ba yung mga common characteristics nila that can explain why they become a bad leader. Diba? So, parang gumamit ka ng case history in doing that research. Number 4, can listening to a sad music worsen one's depression? This is going to be a quantitative research. Specifically, anong method? Under quantitative research, this is going to be an experiment. Can listening to a sad music worsen one's depression? Oo, this is going to be experiment. Siguro kung ako gagawa nito, this is a simple pre-test and post-test design. Again, you review your experimental psychology for this. Number 4, quantitative. Number 5, what do same-sex couples think about being parents? Diba? Most likely, this is going to be a qualitative research. Kung gusto mong malaman kung ano ba yung mga pananaw ng same-sex couples on parenthood, how do they define parenthood? Yung definition ba nila ng parenthood iba compared to opposite sex couples? In what way are they different? In what way are they the same? Then the best thing you can do here is to interview same-sex couples and then ask them about their conceptions of being a parent. Or kung gusto mo medyo comparative ang dating, you interview same-sex couples, ask them about their idea of parenting, and you also ask opposite-sex couples, yung stereotypical couple, male and female, and then you ask them their concept of parenting. And then from there, you combine the two. Are there any differences in the way same-sex couples define parenting compared to opposite-sex couples in defining parenting? O, di ba magandang study yun? It becomes a comparative qualitative research. Next, let's move on to number 6. Does birth order significantly affect leadership qualities? The fact na nakakita ka ng salitang significantly affect, this is going to be a quantitative research. Most likely, this is going to be an experiment. Pero anong klaseng experiment? This is going to be a quasi-experiment because yung magiging independent variable mo dito, again, just review your notes in experimental psychology. Your independent variable here cannot be directly manipulated by the experimenter kasi we are talking about birth order, di ba? We don't assign birth orders. People are already in a certain birth order even before they enter the laboratory. But regardless, this is going to be a quantitative research. Number 7, is there a relationship between sadness and capacity to make people laugh? This is going to be a quantitative research. In fact, number 7 is very easy. Meron ka ng mga keywords dito na makikita to make you say that this is a quantitative research. Number 1, relationship. And number 2, capacity. The words relationship and capacity are very quantitative terms. So tandaan nyo yan, no? Minsan, there are certain keywords in the research question that will make it very obvious whether the research was done in a quantitative way or in a qualitative way. Specifically for number 7, ano ang quantitative method na gagamitin nyo dito? Since we are talking about relationship, we want to measure the strength of the relationship between those variables, no? Sadness and laughter, then this is going to be a correlational research. Number 8, what color of shirt attracts men toward women more? This is going to be a quantitative research. What color of shirt at specifically experiment. Again, you review your notes in experimental psychology and then given this research question, itry nyo mag-design ng experiment that can answer this research question. What will be your independent variable? What will be the levels of your independent variable? And what will be your dependent variable? Siguro bigyan ko kayo ng clue for number 8. Ano ang dependent variable for number 8? The dependent variable would be attraction, the degree of attraction. Yung independent variable, kayo ang mag-isip. Number 9, how powerful can leadership predict a person's success? This is going to be a quantitative research because we are talking about prediction. Whenever you see the word prediction, prediction can be done through quantitative research. There are certain statistical methods that we can use na ang primary purpose niya ng mga methods na yun is to predict something, such as what? Well, correlation can be used or even regression. Linear regression or multiple regression are methods, statistical methods that we use to predict the occurrence of something. Number 10, what are the common psychological factors that make up a democratic versus a dictatorial leader? This is going to be a qualitative research. Again, anong gagawin mo dito? Hahanap ka lang ng mga leaders under or using democratic style, hanap ka ng mga leaders using dictatorial style, and then maybe you can read their biographies, and then from reading their biographies, you identify certain psychological factors that they have in common. Ano yung common sa mga democratic leaders na characteristics? Ano yung mga common sa mga dictatorial leaders na characteristic? And then from there, you compare the two. So I hope naka-perfect 10 kayo in doing this exercise. Again, the point of the exercise is this is designed to help you practice your knowledge in differentiating quantitative research and qualitative research. Again, they are not the same. In what way are they different? There are many differences between those two. Reviewin nyo yung mga past videos ko, pero ang pinaka-essence, ang pinaka-importanting malaman nyo is quantitative research and qualitative research ask different types of questions. Now, in connection to our topic for today, we will talk about complementarity of quantitative and qualitative research. The key word here that I would like you to really take seriously is the word complementarity. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng complement? Pag sinabi mong nagko-complement tayo sa isa't isa or nagko-complement yung dalawa sa isa't isa, it means that there is interdependence or there is a certain level of support between two things. Diba? So when you say the husband and the wife are complementing each other, it means they interdepend with each other. They support each other. Diba? Yun yung ibig sabihin ng complementarity. Now, we can apply this definition of complementarity in doing psychological research. Today, in this video, pag-uusapan natin how quantitative research and qualitative research complement each other. You know, this lesson is very important kasi ayokong magkaroon kayo ng picture na yung quantitative research and yung qualitative research, there are opposing forces. Magkaaway sila. That's not the case. Ayokong gagamit kayo na parang I don't want you to dichotomize those two methods. Ayokong iisipin nyo na, ako quantitative guy. Yung classmate ko, qualitative girl. Hindi ganun eh. I don't like you to make those different methods fight each other. Because the quantitative research method and the qualitative research methods, they are not opponents. Hindi sila magkaaway. Hindi natin sila dapat pinag-aaway. In fact, in psychology, we consider quantitative research and qualitative research as complementarity. They complement each other. They interdepend on each other. They support each other. Today, I am going to show you that. Now, in what way do they complement each other? Quantitative research and qualitative research, they are complementing each other. In what way? This is the way. They answer each other's unanswered questions. Don't get me wrong, no? Quantitative research can answer quantitative questions. Qualitative research can answer qualitative questions. But remember, every time a quantitative research gives us an answer, every time a qualitative research gives us an answer, there are still certain sets of questions that method or that approach still cannot answer. Halimbawa, merong mga tanong ang quantitative, merong mga tanong, okay, na hindi kayang sagutin ng isang quantitative conclusion. Meron mga tanong na hindi rin kayang sagutin ng isang qualitative question. Question, ano yung dapat natin gawin in case we have a question that cannot be answered by, let's say, our quantitative question? What do? We go to qualitative method, we do a follow-up study and this time use the qualitative method to answer the unanswered question generated from the quantitative method and vice versa for qualitative conclusions, diba? For every qualitative conclusions, we can think of many quantitative questions that cannot be answered by the qualitative method. So anong gagawin natin? Follow-up study, this time using a quantitative method. Sabi nga ni Albert Einstein in relation to that idea, everything that can be counted does not necessarily count. Everything that counts cannot necessarily be counted. So, to make the long story short, to make this simpler, hindi lahat ng numbers magme-make sense simply by using the numbers. Diba? Numbers cannot be explained by numbers. There are times that numbers must be explained by something else. No, it must be explained by certain reasons. Pero ganun din naman yung mga reasons, no? The qualitative side. Yung mga reasons, they cannot stand up on their own without the support by numbers. So the reason and the numbers, they support each other. For every conclusion that we discover out of the numbers, we need to have reasons why we got those numbers. And in the same way, for every reasons that we have, we need numbers to support the reasons that we believe to be true. Yun yung complementarity ng quantitative at ng qualitative research. Now, let me demonstrate how quantitative research complements qualitative research. Sa Tagalog, paano nakakatulong ang quantitative research o paano sinusuportahan ng quantitative research ang isang qualitative research. Let's start with a qualitative question. Halimbawa, what makes DLSU students happy? Very simple question. What will you use? Quantitative or qualitative? The question here is what? Diba? Hindi siya how much, hindi siya how strong. The question is what? So, tulad ng sinabi ko in the past video, usually, if your question starts with a what, that will involve you to use qualitative research method. And the most obvious method to be used here is obviously interview. So, kapag yan ang tanong mo, ano ang nagpapaligaya sa mga lasalista, anong gagawin mo? Mag-i-interview ka. Sinong i-interviewin mo? Mga lasalista. And you will ask them about what? About happiness. As a student of LaSalle, what makes you a happy person? So I hope you can picture what will you do here, no? Pupunta ka ngayon sa campus, and then you are going to go around the campus and then ask people around, as a student of LaSalle, what makes you happy? Now, this slide, imagine niyo, ito yung ating hypothetical data. Imagine that these are the things I wrote inside my notebook. So, umikot ako sa LaSalle, nag-interview ako ng mga tao, what makes them happy, and these are my notes inside my notebook. So, what do we do in qualitative research? How do we analyze? Diba, pinag-aralan natin to, no? Oo, sorry, typographical, no? Dapat analysis. Oo, dapat may letter L. No? I apologize for that. Anyway, so how do we analyze data using qualitative research? Again, we form categories. Hindi tayo nagbibilang. We are not using statistics here. We are going to construct categories or themes. And what is the essence of forming themes? We find trends or patterns in their answers. Okay, para mas malinaw, i-demonstrate ko, no? So, looking at my notebook, I am going to select the different answers here na mukhang they can be combined as one theme, because their idea is pretty much the same. What makes them happy? Look at those words na lumalaki. Diba? What makes them happy? High grades, dean's lister, passing assignments on time, I get awards from school, and another passing a test. Diba? So, what do they have in common? These different answers, they have one thing in common. So, that can be considered as one theme. And I can call that theme as academic achievement. Academic achievement makes students happy. Specifically, anong mga academic achievements yung nagpapasaya sa kanila? Yon, yung mga sinabi ko. Passing a test, award from school, dean's lister, pass assignments on time, and high grades. Now, we are not yet done. Going back to my notebook, ano na naman yung mga answers dito na mukhang meron silang common denominator? Again, those words that are being enlarged, it seems like meron silang common idea that they reflect. What makes them happy? I would name this theme relationships. Playing basketball with siblings, girlfriend, parents are not fighting when they have out of town with their family. Clear? Next, going back to my notebook again, ano pa yung mga natira dito na responses? Those words that are being enlarged, again, they have one thing in common. Merong anong essence ng mga words na yan? What makes them happy? I would call this hobbies. Playing guitar, making t-shirt, when they join football tournament, playing Dota, Facebook, surfing the net, eating. Diba? Yun yung common nila. So, I would name this as the theme hobbies. Okay? So, going back, now we were able to complete a qualitative research. What makes a typical Lasallian happy? According to my qualitative research, there are 3 factors. 3 categories that make Lasallians happy. Number 1 is academic achievement. Number 2 is their relationships. And number 3 is their hobbies. O, diba? Ang ganda ng qualitative research natin. And I hope you can see the application here. Imagine I am the owner of LaSalle. Halimbawa lang, no? Huwag nyo naman seryosohin. Halimbawa lang, I'm the owner of LaSalle. And I would like my students to be happy. I would like students currently enrolled in my university to be happy. Anong gagawin ko? Based on my research, ito pala yung nagpapaligaya sa isang typical na lasalista. So anong gagawin ko? Academic achievement may be what? I would instruct all teachers to give bonus points to students. Relationships. Anong gagawin ko? Siguro I will call one day off. Sabihin ko walang pasok ng Wednesday because Wednesday is relationship day. The entire day, all students will be required to spend time with people they care about inside the university. Number 3, hobbies. Ano kayang magandang application ko dito? I will call off, let's say, Friday, and Friday is hobby day. No classes on Friday. Ang gagawin natin is all students will be required to just do the hobbies that they like to do inside the campus. Diba? So, in that way, as a principal or as the owner of the school, I am doing certain things to make my students happy. But guess what? Those things that I'm doing to make them happy, merong pinanggagalingan na data. I am being guided by the data, by the research that I did on what makes Lasallians happy. Diba? Ganyan dapat talaga ang paggawa ng desisyon if you are using the scientific approach. Every decision that you make is supported by the data that you collected through research. But here's the thing. Tulad nga na sinasabi ko kanina, saan dito na ngayon papasok yung complementarity. Although we can now answer this question, what makes DLSU students happy? Let's say I ask these questions. How happy are DLSU students right now? Right? Given the data that I have in my hands, hindi kayang sagutin yan. Kasi nga, yung tanong natin is, what makes DLSU students happy? Qualitative. But if you try to ask a quantitative question, so how happy are DLSU students right now? We don't know. What we know is what makes them happy. But are they happy now? How happy are they? We don't know. Because now we have begun to ask a quantitative question. So what do? We can do a follow-up study. Diba? After we know the things that make them happy, now we ask a new question. How happy are they? Follow-up study, let's do a quantitative research. Anong gagawin natin yan? The best way to do this, to measure how happy they are, is to develop a psychological test that can measure their happiness. That is a very quantitative approach. Remember yung lesson nyo sa Psychometrics 1, psychological, Psychme 1 and 2, right? You were taught how to make and administer psychological tests. In fact, the act of administering psychological tests and scoring psychological tests, that is already a very quantitative method. So if I would like to know how happy are my students right now inside the LaSalle campus, ang gagawin ko, yung mga themes ko kanina na qualitative, academic achievement, relationships, hobbies, I am going to convert that into psychological test. Right? In a more psychometric terms, etong tatlong ito, yung bullet na yan, this will be called my factors. Diba? So, I can now form items, let's say 10 items under each factor. Achievement factor, relationship factor, and hobbies factor. Halimbawa, under achievement, I can come up with an item saying this. I believe that I am high achieving student. That item will be under the achievement factor. And then, I'm going to make 9 more items. Let's say you would like to have 10 items per factor. Diba? So, ang binuo lang natin yung number 1. How about for hobbies? I can come up with this item. I have the freedom to do things I consider as my hobby. Diba? So, that's one item. Gagawa pa ako ng siyampa na items so that I can have 10 items under the hobbies factor. The same thing with relationships. I can come up with this item. I can sense right now that my relationships with other people are healthy. So, I can make that item and then 9 more items to make it 10 items under relationships. Diba? Remember the process? Actually, ginawa nyo yan, diba? Sa psychological measurement 1 or 2, where you were asked by your teacher to create your own psychological test. So, that can be considered as a quantitative research method. So, to make the long story short, after I generate all 30 items, ito na ngayon yung magiging forma niyan, diba? So, after each statement, meron sa tabi nun, meron kang tinatawag na Likert scale. So for number 1, how much do you agree? 1 to 5. For number 2, how much do you agree? 1 to 5. Number 3, how much do you agree? 1 to 5, so on and so forth. Each of the 30 items that you will develop, merong ganyang format. So nakabuo ka na ngayon ng psychological test. And then after you form that psychological test with 30 items, and then 5-point Likert scale, ano ang next step? Now you are going to administer that psychological test to the students inside your university. By doing that, you can now more or less measure how happy are they. Diba? Sana nakukuha niyo yung logic, no? So, after you come up with the 30 questions, the psychological test, now you administer your constructed test to students in the school. In that way, you will now know how much or how happy are they. O, diba? Nag-complement, no? I hope you saw the complementarity. We know what makes them happy, but we don't know how happy they are. But we can. Kaya natin. How? What did we do? Gumawa tayo ng psychological test, and then we will administer that psychological test to students, making that approach quantitative. That's how quantitative research can complement qualitative research. Now, let's go to part 2. How qualitative research complements quantitative research. So, magsisimula tayo sa quantitative research. Paano yun mako-complement o paano yun masusuportahan ng qualitative research? Okay? Let's go back to this example again. Halimbawa, let's start with the quantitative research, no? We are successful in developing an instrument that can measure how happy students are in the university. Gumawa tayo ng 30-item test that can measure Lasallian happiness. Let's say we are done administering this test to 100 LaSalle students. Ito yung mga averages nila. For the achievement factor, in average mo, let's say from 100 students, all in all, yung average nila for achievement factor is 4.8. 5 is the highest, 1 is the lowest. Relationship factor is 4.5. Taas din yan kasi 5 highest, 1 lowest eh. Hobbies factor 3.2. Tama lang, 'di ba? Kasi gitna yung 3 eh. Not so high, not so low. Okay? So if you want to get the general happiness of students, anong gagawin nyo? Eh di kunin nyo lang yung grand average. 4.8 plus 4.5 plus 3.2 divided by 3. Yung number na lalabas doon will be the overall level of happiness of Lasallians in the campus. Then you are done doing your quantitative research. But then again, since we are talking about complementarity, ang sinasabi ko nga kanina, there are certain questions that cannot be answered by a quantitative result such as this. Such as what? Halimbawa, tinanong ko, why academic achievements make students happy? 'Di ba? Kasi ang lumabas 4.8 sa academic achievement, no? So that makes them happy. Pero ito ang tanong ko. Bakit? What is it with academic achievements that make students happy? What happens to themselves? What is it in academic achievement na kapag meron ka nun, nagiging masaya sila? We don't know. Our quantitative results cannot answer that question because our quantitative research is giving us numbers. But for question number 1, it's not requiring us to give it a number. 'Di ba? Kinakailangan sa number 1, reason. Why? The same thing with number 2. Why is having good relationships leading to happiness? What we know is relationships make them happy. 4.5. Masaya sila. Pero we don't know why. What is with relationships that it makes them feel happy? Ano nangyayari sa loob nila na kapag maganda ang relationship nila sa ibang tao, they feel happy? The answer, we don't know. Because again, these two questions doon sa red box, these are qualitative questions that our quantitative research cannot answer. So what do we do if we would like to know the reasons for this? Follow-up study. But that follow-up study will require you to do a qualitative research. So what do we do? Ang gagawin natin dyan is, gagawa ngayon tayo ng mga qualitative questions that will explore those two factors, achievement and relationships. Although, tatlo yung factors natin dito, no? For the sake of our example, wag na muna natin isama yung hobbies. Achievement and relationships lang muna kasi doon sila pinakamataas, di ba? So what do? We are going to run an FGD, focus group discussion. It's like interview but in a group setting. I think that's the most logical method to use in this context, no? Huwag ka na mag-isa-isa pa ng interview, isabay-sabay mo na. Okay, so anong gagawin mo ngayon? Develop qualitative questions under achievement. 'Di ba? Remember ano yung tinatanong natin kanina? Why academic achievements make them happy? So I'm going to develop questions, qualitative questions that will help us answer question number 1, such as what? Why do students feel happy when they academically achieve? How do these achievements influence the way they look at themselves? Are the influences of these achievements carried over to the other domains of their life? If yes, how did this happen? There you go. So by answering these 3 questions, by asking people these 3 questions, we can now answer that qualitative question kanina. Why academic achievements make students happy? Diba? So, ipapa-FGD mo yan. So, let's say, kuha ka ng 15 students, run an FGD, and then answer each of these questions. By doing that, masasagot mo na yung pinaka-general question natin, what's with academic achievement that it makes them happy? The same thing with relationships, okay? So, ano yung mga qualitative questions that I can develop? Do the relationships they have in school differ in relationships they have at home? If yes, in what way? In what way or ways are students influenced by having good relationships with others? Anong epekto sa kanila nun? Kapag alam nilang meron silang magandang relationships with other people. Number 3, how do they see themselves when they think they are not doing well in their relationships? Ito, medyo baligtad. Anong epekto sa kanila if they are sensing that they are not doing well with their relationships? Anong negative effects sa kanila? Again, by answering these 3 questions, we can now answer the second general question a while ago, yung why is having good relationships leading to happiness? O, di ba? So, the follow-up qualitative study that we will do will complement these quantitative results. Diba? So, imagine niyo if you are able to complete this study, ang ganda, kompleto, no? Not only we know how happy they are, but we also know what makes them happy and why. O, diba ang ganda? When quantitative research complements with qualitative research, it makes your psychological research very comprehensive, very complete. Kaya nga sinasabi ko, huwag niyong pag-aawayin yung quantitative research and qualitative research. You can use one to support the other and come up with a more comprehensive psychological research. Now we will know why academic achievements make students happy, why is having good relationships leading to happiness. Again, kapag nasagot nyo yung mga questions na yan, now you will know the answer why. Last demo to show to you how qualitative complements quantitative and vice versa. This time, let's use evolutionary psychology and attraction. Alam nyo, sa social psychology, isa sa mga pinakasikat na topic is the psychology of interpersonal attraction. And to tell you honestly, this is one of the researches that I am really very interested on. Alright? Halos lahat ng researches ko, halos lahat ng binabasa ko, it's about interpersonal attraction, no? So, let me demonstrate how qualitative research complements quantitative research. Now, let me start with this. Alam nyo ba, usually, in interpersonal attraction, this is the research question. What do men and women find attractive from each other? Okay? That's where most researches in this topic are coming from. What do men and women find attractive from each other? And to tell you honestly, in that field, maraming mga pag-aaral ang ginagamit quantitative studies. So whenever you have a question about interpersonal attraction, most studies are done in a quantitative way. And I, for one, gumawa ako ng quantitative research on this. Okay? So ito yung aking some partial results, no? According to the theory, just to give you an idea on one theory that explains what men and women like from each other, according to evolutionary theory, people will like each other when they get rewards or benefits from each other. I mean, come on, wag na tayo magplastikan dito. We know that's true, di ba? You are more likely to like someone because you are getting something from that person. And the person likes you because that person is getting a benefit from you. Di ba? Come on, let's be honest. Let's not deny it. Totoo yan. And that is what the evolutionary theory of attraction is saying. Now, the question is that a true assumption? Is it true that we are more likely to like other people na nakakakuha tayo ng benefits from? One way to confirm whether a theory is true or not is to use a quantitative research, specifically survey, di ba? So anong pwede natin gawin to evaluate if this reason is true? Totoo ba na yung rewards or yung benefits contribute to how you like a person, how much you like a person? So gumawa ngayon ako ng dalawang questions on this. The first question I generated was, gifts I receive from someone who likes me can make me like that someone back. I think that's pretty straightforward, di ba? So yes or no question lang ito, and then I administered this to hundreds of people. I forgot kung specifically ilang hundreds because long time ago na to eh. Pero ang alam ko lagpas to ng 200, no? Oo. So I administered this question using quantitative method. Yes or no? Frequency count lang yan. Ilan magsasabi ng yes, ilan magsasabi ng no. That is a quantitative research. So I know you would like to know the results. When I administered this to hundreds of students, guess what I found out? 85% said no. Only 15% said yes. So the reason why these numbers are in red because these numbers don't support the theory. Remember ang sinasabi ng theory, why do you like another person? Because of the benefit that you get from that person. Oh, pero bakit marami nagsasabi dito na yung benefit na makukuha nila from someone such as gifts won't matter? Diba? So hindi siya tugma doon sa theory. But let's dig deeper. Let's zoom in to those people who said no. Alam nyo ba, merong gender difference doon sa nagsabi ng no. Out of those 85% who said no, gifts don't matter to them. 23% of those who said no are males, while 62% of those who said no are females. Ibig sabihin, girls are more likely to say that gifts that they get from a guy don't matter in terms of how much they will like a guy. Maliwanag? Now, here's my question. Kasi remember, that was a quantitative outcome. Quantitative result yan eh. More females say that for them, gifts they receive from a guy don't matter in terms of how much they will like the guy. But what if I ask you this question? Why do gifts don't matter that much for girls than for guys? Do you think my survey can answer this question? No. Because again, I'm starting with the question why. Why nga eh? Bakit? I'm looking for a reason. So, that 85% cannot answer the question why. Diba ang labo? Why do gifts don't matter that much for girls? Alam ko sagot. Kasi 85%, diba? I mean, it does not answer that question, no? So again, if I would like to know the answer to that question, why do gifts don't matter that much for girls, anong gagawin ko? Qualitative research. Follow-up study using qualitative research, maybe focus group discussion or interviews. Okay? So, I'm not yet done. Under this, diba, we are still coming up with items under rewards, di ba? Gumawa pa ako ng isang item that can again evaluate how true is it to say that benefits matter to attraction. No? So this was my first question, this was my second question. So ganun ulit, yes or no question lang. Financial stability of someone is important for me before I like him or her in the context of a serious relationship. Now, ang pinagkaiba ng question na ito dito is that here, wala kasi akong qualifier. Okay? But I experimented on a second question where this time, I will say that financial stability is important in the context of a serious relationship. Do you think the numbers would matter? Kasi if this is consistent, if this one is the truth, dapat more or less if I ask them this question, dapat ganyan din yung sagot. Mas marami pa rin magsasabi ng no. 'Di ba? Oo, which means na sa attraction talaga, wala masyadong kinalaman yung mga gifts o yung mga benefits that other people can get from you. Is that the case? Well, again, I administered this question to hundreds of students and the results are the following. Boom. 92% of them said, yes, it's very important. Financial stability is very important for my future partner, while only 7% said, no, it's not that important. And out of those 92% who said yes, 69% were females, only 22% were males. Again, very interesting quantitative results. But if I give you qualitative questions such as, so why does financial stability matter a lot for girls? Why does it matter more for girls than guys? Again, 92% cannot answer that question because 92% is a result from a quantitative research. If we want to answer this question, then we need to do a follow-up qualitative research. Another question. How come girls differ in their responses between gifts and financial stability? Now, I'm talking about the two items that I generated, 'di ba? Bakit parang naging opposite yung results nila? When I asked them if they would like someone based on the gifts that they can get from the person, they will say, no, it does not matter. Pero pagdating sa financial stability, it begins to matter. Why? Anong difference ng gifts lang sa financial stability na? Or more importantly, bakit kapag nasa konteksto na ng long-term relationship, things begin to matter more? 'Di ba? Benefits matter more in serious relationships. Kasi ang assumption ko, sa tingin ko kasi, dito, baka dahil wala akong qualifier, they were thinking about short-term relationship. No? Siguro in the context of courtship ito 'di ba? Pero yun nga, so parang ang lumalabas dito, pagdating sa courtship, hindi nagmamatter yung gifts. Okay? Short-term relationship. Pero pagdating sa pagiging husband and wife na, long-term na, now it begins to matter. Why? What's the difference between the marriage context and the courtship context that benefits matter more in serious relationships? That is a qualitative question that quantitative method cannot answer. So, anong gagawin ko para masagot yung dalawang tanong na yan? Follow-up study, this time using a qualitative research. Okay? So, I hope these many examples I gave you really help you see the idea that quantitative research and qualitative research are not necessarily anti to each other. Instead of being anti to each other, they complement one another. In conclusion, number one, just to close our discussion between quantitative and qualitative research. Number one, a research can either be quantitative or qualitative. Okay? So that's how you can look at researches in psychology. May mga research quantitative, may mga research qualitative. And also remember, there are many ways how to do quantitative research and many ways how to do qualitative research. Number two, quantitative research and qualitative research have limitations. I mean, by limitations, quantitative research cannot answer all kinds of questions. Quantitative research can only answer quantitative questions. Qualitative research can only answer qualitative questions. Therefore, in a quantitative research, if you have a follow-up qualitative question, that research cannot answer that. In a qualitative research, if you have a quantitative question, you need another follow-up study and do a quantitative research. So, hindi nila kayang masagot ang lahat ng tanong. That is why, ano ang solusyon natin dyan? We mix them. There are times that we make them complement each other. Yan na ngayon tinatawag nating mixed research. Okay? So, although in number one, most studies are either purely quantitative or purely qualitative, guess what? Meron din naman mga studies na ang tawag mixed research. Meaning, hindi siya purely quantitative, hindi siya purely qualitative. There are certain psychological studies out there that use both. Pero, laging may nangingibabaw eh. Kumbaga, there is a method or there is an approach who is more dominant over the other. Some psychological research using mixed method or mixed research, qualitative dominates the quantitative. Kumbaga, yung main question talaga niya qualitative, supplement lang yung quantitative. And vice versa, there are mixed studies out there. Ang pinaka-purpose niya talaga is quantitative. Yung follow-up study lang niya would be qualitative. But then again, regardless which one dominates the other, you should not make qualitative and quantitative methods enemies of each other. The new trend today in psychology is to mix the two. You do a quantitative research, you do a follow-up qualitative research. You do a qualitative research, you do a follow-up quantitative research to make your research more comprehensive. Okay? So in closing, before I announce to you your task, I would like you to do this exercise before you close this video. Okay? Identify if the following conclusions are qualitative or quantitative. So may papakita ako sa inyong mga conclusions, no, from certain studies, and then after that, what do? Depending on your answer, kung qualitative yon or quanti, come up with a possible unanswered question opposite of your answer. Nagigets nyo? Halimbawa, ang sagot mo qualitative. Yung conclusion na to is qualitative. For example, what do? Come up with a quantitative question that cannot be answered by that qualitative conclusion. Yung parang ginawa ko kanina sa lecture video, di ba? Nag-present ako ng isang quantitative result, pero nagbigay ako ng mga qualitative questions. You do the same. Okay? So, sana malinaw. Again, hindi nyo naman to ipapasa, but I would like you to do it on your notebooks just to train yourself how to think quantitatively and how to think qualitatively. Okay? So, ready? Number 1. You can pause the video or just take a picture of the slide and then work on this on your notebook. It seems like among all the identified predictors of well-being, financial stability is the variable that mostly predicts this. Ano ba yan? Quantitative or qualitative? And then regardless kung quanti or quali ang sagot mo, letter B, anong gagawin mo? Mag-isip ka ng isang tanong na hindi kayang sagutin ng research na yan, given that it is a quanti research or a quali research. Number 2, level of stress was shown to be the strongest variable and positively related to number of errors in a task. Quantitative ba yan or qualitative? Tapos isip ka ng follow-up question na merong opposite approach. Number 3, most of the mistresses interviewed mentioned that watching a movie related to their situation makes them happy. Quantitative ba yan or qualitative? And then, give one possible unanswered question. Number 4, most drivers who participated in a focus group discussion believe that family conflicts and job-related stress they experience somehow influence the quality of their driving skills while on the road. So, meron daw epekto yung kanilang problema sa pamilya sa kanilang pagdadrive sa kalsada. Is that a qualitative or a quantitative conclusion? And then after you decide, come up with an answered question na hindi kayang sagutin ng conclusion na yan. Alright? So, that ends our lesson for this video. The next task that you are going to do, or the next video that I'm going to upload, is a video that will now teach you how to do your final requirement for this subject. So, abangan nyo lang yung video na yon. Maybe I'm going to upload that this weekend. For the meantime, while you are waiting for that video, just focus on your ability to differentiate quantitative research from qualitative research. Specifically, I would like you to practice your ability to design or to formulate quantitative research question and qualitative research question. Because gagamitin natin yung skill na yan in doing your final project. Your final project is designed for me to know if you already have the skill of number 1, differentiating qualitative and quantitative research, and number 2, formulating qualitative research question and quantitative research question. So please master those abilities. Thank you for listening, and just wait for the next video. Okay, thank you and God bless.